Amara Okafor stood very still in front of the biggest house she had ever seen in her life, her fingers tightly holding an invitation card that was never meant to be hers. The mansion rose into the night sky like something from a dream, glowing with golden lights, its tall gates guarded by men in black suits, and expensive cars lined up outside like silent evidence that only the rich belonged here. This was Banana Island, the most powerful address in Lagos, Nigeria, and tonight the Okafor family had been invited to a billionaire charity gala inside. Her cousin Ifunanya made sure everyone in the family got an invitation. Everyone except Amara. He was not important enough, not valuable enough, not family enough, and yet she was here. Not walking beside them as a guest, but following behind them like a shadow, like someone who didn't deserve to be seen. Her heels felt heavy against the smooth ground as her aunt leaned close to her ear and whispered in a cold, warning voice, "Stay quiet. Don't embarrass us. Just do what you came here to do." Amara lowered her eyes immediately, the same way she had done her entire life, hiding the emotions building inside her chest. Around her, her relatives laughed and smiled, proud to belong here, proud to be seen. None of them noticed the quiet strength in Amara's silence. None of them noticed that she wasn't nervous. She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't small. Because while they saw a poor, unwanted girl standing outside a billionaire's mansion, they had no idea that Amara Okafor already belonged inside. Amara could not remember a time when she was ever treated like a real member of the Okafor family. After her parents died, she was taken into her uncle Chief Emeka Okafor's house. But she was never taken into his heart. His own children had big bedrooms, soft beds and new clothes every month, while Amara slept in a small room near the kitchen, close enough to hear her name whenever someone needed something. She was still a child when they first handed her a bucket and told her to wash everyone's clothes. Her small hands would ache as she scrubbed, but no one cared. While her cousins went to private schools and birthday parties, Amara stayed home to cook their food, sweep their floors and serve their guests. She learned very early that in that house she was not a daughter, not even really a niece. She was help. She was useful. And that was all. Even as she grew older, nothing changed. When visitors came, her uncle would smile proudly at his children and then point at Amara like she was an afterthought and say, "That one is just our poor cousin. We are helping her. Helping her." Those words always hurt the most because no one saw the truth. No one saw the lonely girl who cried herself to sleep. No one saw how she stayed awake at night, wondering why she was never enough to be loved. Her cousins spoke to her like she was beneath them, ordering her around even when they were adults. "Amara, bring water. Amara, clean this. Amara, hurry up." They never said please. They never said thank you. And Amara obeyed because she had nowhere else to go. She became quiet, careful, invisible. She learned to hide her pain behind silence. And now, standing outside this billionaire's mansion with them, nothing had changed. They did not bring her here to celebrate. They did not bring her here to belong. They brought her here to serve. And deep inside her heart, Amara could already feel it. Tonight was not going to be a night of joy for her. Tonight was going to hurt, much worse than ever before. The moment Amara stepped inside the gala, she felt like she had entered another world. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above her like falling stars. The marble floors shined so brightly she could see her reflection, and everywhere she looked, there were powerful people laughing and talking like they owned the earth. African billionaires in expensive suits, politicians surrounded by security, famous celebrities smiling for cameras, people whose names appeared in newspapers and on television. The air smelled of rich perfume and success. Amara stood quietly behind her family, her hands clasped together, her heart beating fast, hoping no one would notice her, hoping she could pass the night without shame. But peace never stayed with her for long. Suddenly, her cousin Adeobi let out a loud gasp. Red wine had spilled across the front of her golden dress. For a second there was silence. Then Adeobi turned, her eyes full of anger, and shouted loudly, "Amara, clean this." Her voice echoed across the room. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. People stared. Amara froze. She knew the truth. Adeobi had spilled the wine herself, but she needed someone to blame. She needed Amara. Guests began whispering. Some covered their mouths, hiding their smiles. Some didn't hide their laughter at all. Amara's face burned with shame, but before she could even move, her aunt grabbed her arm tightly, her nails digging into her skin, and hissed, "Don't just stand there. Go to the kitchen. Wash the dishes. At least earn the food you will eat tonight." The words cut deeper than any knife. Not here. Not tonight. Not in front of all these people. Amara felt every eye on her as she lowered her head again, her chest tight, her throat dry. No one defended her. No one stopped it. In that moment something inside her broke. She was no longer their cousin. She was no longer even pretending to be family. In front of Africa's richest and most powerful people, Amara Okafor became nothing more than a servant. What none of them knew, what none of them had ever even imagined, was that Amara Okafor had been living with a secret for the past 2 years. A secret she carried quietly, the same way she carried her pain. She was not alone in this world anymore. She was married. Not in a big church wedding with music and hundreds of guests like her cousins dreamed of, but in a small, simple ceremony with only 2 witnesses and hearts full of love. His name was Kwame Mensah. She met him on a day when she felt completely invisible, when she was sitting alone by the roadside after being sent on errands like always. He spoke to her with kindness, not pity. He listened to her like her voice mattered. He never treated her like she was small. And that was the moment her life quietly began to change. Kwame was different from the men her family respected. He wore simple clothes. He spoke gently. He never tried to show off. When Amara told her relatives about him, they laughed. They called him a poor nobody from Accra, Ghana. They told her she was foolish to waste her life on a man who had nothing. They never asked questions. They never cared enough to know him. So Amara stopped explaining. She kept her marriage private. She protected her peace. Because what they saw was only what Kwame allowed the world to see. What they didn't know was the truth. Kwame was not a poor man. Not even close. He was one of the youngest and most powerful billionaires in Africa. He owned companies, buildings, land, and more wealth than her family could ever imagine. He lived simply because he chose to, not because he had to. And the biggest secret of all stood around her at this very moment. The grand mansion she was forced to enter through the back. The same mansion where she was sent to wash dishes like a servant. It did not belong to strangers. It did not belong to her family. It belonged to her husband. And they had no idea. Amara stood quietly in the large kitchen, her hands deep in warm, soapy water, holding plates that did not belong to her, in a house that secretly did. Her fingers trembled not because the work was hard, she had done harder work her entire life, but because of what it meant. The sound of laughter floated in from the ballroom, loud and happy, the kind of laughter that had never included her. Every laugh felt like a reminder. Every sound reminded her where her family believed she belonged. Behind the scenes. Hidden. Unseen. A servant. Her vision blurred as tears slowly rolled down her cheeks, falling into the sink and disappearing like they didn't matter. She didn't cry because of the dishes. She didn't cry because of the insults. She cried because, in that moment, the truth finally became clear in her heart. He was never loved in that family. Not once. Not ever. They didn't see her as blood. They saw her as burden. As shame. As someone lucky just to be allowed to exist near them. And somehow that hurt more than anything else. She wiped her face quickly, not wanting the other workers to see her break, even though they were too busy to notice. Then suddenly the room grew strangely quiet. She felt it before she understood it. She looked up and saw the head house manager standing near the door, frozen, staring directly at her. His eyes narrowed in confusion, like he was trying to solve something impossible. He looked at her face carefully, then at her hands, then back at her face again. He knew that face. He had seen it before. Somewhere important. Somewhere he would never forget. His mouth opened slightly, ready to speak, ready to ask a question. But before a single word could leave his lips, something changed outside. The laughter stopped. The music stopped. The voices stopped. The entire mansion fell into sudden, heavy silence. Something was happening. Something big. And everyone could feel it. Outside, the quiet hum of conversation was suddenly broken by the low rumble of engines. Luxury cars, black and sleek, rolled up the driveway, their headlights cutting through the night like spotlights. Security guards snapped to attention, standing straight and alert, eyes scanning every corner, every guest. A ripple ran through the crowd. Whispers started spreading like wildfire. He's here. Kwame Mensah is here. People turned, craning their necks, some trying to catch a glimpse before the man himself appeared. And then he did. Kwame stepped out of the first car, calm, confident, commanding every gaze without even trying. He was young, but every inch of him screamed power, influence, and wealth. Cameras flashed, but he barely looked at them. He didn't need their attention. He owned the room, the mansion, the gala. And yet he moved like a man who only belonged to one place at a time. Everyone who mattered, everyone who had tried to impress or intimidate their way into his world, suddenly felt small. Kwame's eyes scanned the crowd slowly, deliberately, and for a heartbeat, everyone held their breath. He wasn't here for them. He wasn't here for the applause or the whispers. He was here for one person, his wife. And even in the shadows of the ballroom, even across the distance from the kitchen where Amara washed dishes quietly, his gaze found her. Calm, steady, certain. The air around him seemed heavier, charged like a storm about to break. People whispered her name too, some realizing too late who she really was. He walked forward, every step measured, making the ground feel smaller for everyone else. The security shifted aside automatically, clearing his path. This was no ordinary arrival. This was a man who owned everything, moving through a room filled with the powerful, and yet searching only for the one person who mattered to him. Tonight nothing would be the same because the moment Kwame Mensah entered, every glance, every laugh, every secret in that mansion hung in the air, waiting to be revealed. Kwame pushed open the kitchen door, expecting maybe a quiet staff member or an empty room. Instead he froze. There she was, Amara, his wife, standing over a sink full of sudsy water, scrubbing plates with trembling hands, her face lowered, tears glistening silently on her cheeks. The sight stopped him in his tracks. His heart twisted, not from anger at her but from the injustice of it. His wife, the woman he loved, being treated like she belonged in the shadows, being forced to serve in her own home, humiliated, broken. Every step he had taken to reach this mansion, every quiet moment he had planned with her, everything seemed to converge into this single unbearable scene. His hands clenched at his sides. He swallowed the rising anger, forcing it into a cold, hard edge in his voice. "Who did this?" he asked, low and sharp. The words cut through the air like a whip, and immediately the kitchen went silent. Every staff member froze, plates in hands, eyes wide, unsure whether to answer or flee. The sound of his voice carried farther than he intended. Through the open doors and hallways, the laughter, music, and chatter of the gala slowed, faltering. And then his family heard it. That cold, controlled voice that demanded attention and respect. Their smiles faltered. Their whispered conversations died. Chief Emeka's face drained of color. Adeobi's hand shook, letting her wine glass tilt slightly in panic. Their aunt's perfect posture collapsed as she realized that everything they had done, every insult, every command, every ounce of cruelty aimed at Amara, was about to be exposed. Kwame's eyes never left her. The hum of the mansion seemed to stop, the air thick with tension. Everyone felt it, the shift from normalcy to reckoning. And in that instant, the powerful, untouchable man who had entered quietly moments ago became a storm of authority and judgment. His wife was in the wrong place, but the world would soon understand who truly held power. Every laugh, every smug glance, every whisper of superiority they had thrown at Amara was about to come crashing down. Kwame walked into the ballroom, his steps steady, every movement deliberate, every eye in the room slowly turning toward him. In his hand he held Amara's, warm and steady, her fingers entwined with his as if she had always belonged there, right beside him. The chatter, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, all of it stopped. Silence fell like a heavy curtain over the entire room. People froze mid-smile, mid-toast, mid-whisper, their attention caught by the quiet authority in his presence. Kwame raised his voice, calm but powerful, so that every corner of the hall could hear. "This is my wife." The words rolled out slowly, leaving no room for doubt. Gasps filled the room. Conversations died. Cameras clicked frantically, capturing the moment that everyone had assumed would be ordinary. But it was anything but ordinary. Her aunt's face turned pale. The kind of white that comes from realizing a lifetime of pride and cruelty has just been shattered. Her cousin Adeobi's hand trembled, and the glass she had been holding slipped, shattering on the floor with a loud crash that echoed like a drumbeat of humiliation. Chief Emeka clutched at his chest, his breath catching, eyes wide with disbelief. He couldn't believe it. They had spent years treating Amara as less than family, as a servant, as someone they could humiliate without consequence. And now, in front of all the richest, most powerful people in Lagos, that arrogance collapsed instantly. They had forced the owner's wife to wash dishes in her own house. Every insult, every command, every whispered "poor cousin" ricocheted back at them in that single moment. Whispers of "impossible" and "how could this be?" spread through the crowd. The photographers captured her calm face, her small, quiet smile, the way she finally stood tall as everyone who had ever doubted her watched in stunned silence. Amara was no longer invisible. She was not the girl they could push around. She was the woman they had humiliated, and now she was untouchable, held by the man who owned the house, the Gala, and most importantly respected and loved her beyond anything they could imagine. The truth had arrived, and it had destroyed their pride in the most complete, unforgettable way. Kwame didn't raise his voice. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. His eyes, steady and full of authority, were enough to make the room hold its breath. Then he spoke, slow and clear, every word cutting through the stunned silence like a knife. "Remove them." The security guards moved instantly, firm and professional, their hands guiding her family toward the exit. Her aunt, who had whispered cruel commands just minutes ago, tried to protest, but a sharp glance from Kwame froze her. Her cousins stumbled, tripping over their own feet as they were led down the grand staircase. The crowd watched, mouths open, some gasping, some whispering in shock, as the same family that had laughed at Amara, mocked her, and treated her like a servant, now felt the weight of the same humiliation they had so carelessly thrown at her. Every step they took out of the mansion echoed like a warning, a reminder of the night they had lost control, the night their pride shattered. The security didn't push too hard, didn't need to. The shame was enough. Amara stood quietly in the center of the ballroom, her fingers still entwined with Kwame's, her face calm and composed. She didn't need to shout, didn't need to point fingers, didn't need to explain anything. Because silence, the kind that held dignity and strength, hurt far more than anger ever could. Her family's eyes flicked toward her as they were escorted away, searching for any hint of forgiveness, any sign that she would cry or plead. But there was none. Only quiet strength, only calm. Only the truth that she had always known. She was untouchable now. The room filled with whispers and gasps, the guests sharing glances that said it all. The powerful, the proud, the arrogant had been brought low, not by insults or shouting but by the simple, undeniable reality that Amara belonged here fully, completely, and that those who had treated her poorly were nothing in comparison. Kwame held her hand tighter for a moment, a silent reminder of the life she had earned, the respect she had claimed, and the justice she didn't have to fight for. In that quiet, powerful moment, revenge had arrived, not loud, not violent, but perfect, elegant, and unforgettable. Outside the mansion, Amara's family fell to their knees, tears streaming down their faces, voices shaking as they begged for forgiveness. "Amara, please, we didn't mean it, we're sorry," they cried, desperation in every word, hoping somehow she would forgive them, hoping somehow they could erase the years of humiliation and pain they had caused. But Amara didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She didn't waste a single second feeling pity for them. Her eyes were calm, steady, full of the quiet strength they had never seen before. She looked at them, really looked at them, and spoke slowly, her voice soft but cutting through the air like truth itself. "When I needed family, you gave me work. When I needed love, you gave me shame." Every word hit harder than any slap, harder than any insult, because it carried the weight of all the years they had ignored her, mocked her, and used her. She turned away without another word, her hand finding Kwame's, warm and steady, the man who had always seen her, who had always loved her, and together they began walking toward the waiting cars, toward the life she had finally earned. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Her family's cries faded behind her, empty and powerless. The mansion lights sparkled above, the gala forgotten, the whispers of shocked guests trailing behind her like echoes of victory. And in that moment, one truth was clear to everyone watching. Amara Okafor was untouchable, unshakable, and unstoppable. They had tried to humiliate her, to make her small, to make her invisible. But she had risen above it all, calm, proud, and finally free. They made her wash dishes in her own mansion, and that was the last time they ever saw her.